Hi friends and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Luisa, but everybody calls me Lu. And today we are taking a trip back to summer 2025 because apparently I lost my mind and knit 11 finished objects in just one season. Not really sure how I accomplished that, but we have sweaters, tees, pouches, a sock, a unicorn sweater, so a little bit of everything. Some of these became absolute favorites, some of them made me question my life choices, so let's revisit all 11 projects and see how I feel about them a year later. We'll talk about what I like, what I don't like, what I would change, how the yarn has been holding up, all the good stuff. So let's jump right in with my first finished object, which was the Skyline Tee. This was my first tee project of 2025 and I'm just going to say it. I don't like it very much. This is a cute tee and I felt really excited when I cast it on at the time, but I chose the wrong yarn for the picture I had in my head and it turned out very different from what I had planned. My idea was to knit a simple everyday comfy tee with this nice ribbing accent going down the shoulders, an easy throw it on and don't stress about it kind of hand knit, but as it turns out, the yarn I chose, which was Rowan Cotton Revive, didn't really get me there. The yarn itself, it's nice. I don't have any complaints about it, but maybe it was my gauge or I don't know what, but the fabric looks and feels stiff when I'm wearing this piece. It doesn't really have a good drape for the summer tee I had in my head, and because of that the fit looks weird on me. There's this excess fabric next to my armpits that annoys me to no end, so I almost never wear this tee. The only modification I remember making was swapping regular ribbing for twisted rib. Not really sure why I did that, but that's okay because I love the look of a twisted rib. Now, verdict time. It hurts me to say this, but I think this is a 2 out of 5 stars project. Do I reach for it? Not really. I've worn it a couple of times since finishing it, but that's about it. But that said, now that I'm looking at this tee again, I think it deserves another chance. I don't like having handmade things in my closet that I don't wear. It feels wasteful and it bothers me, so I might as well give this another chance this summer. But does the idea of this tee work in real life? I would say absolutely. I just made a mistake when choosing the yarn for my sample. And would I make this again? Yes. With a softer yarn, I think I would wear this constantly, so I definitely recommend the pattern. It's well written, I didn't face any issues with it, my only problem was the yarn I chose for mine. Now, enough about this tee and let's talk about my second project. In the summer, I like to work on some non-garment knits and I had been really excited to try boucle yarn for the first time, so the Teddy Clutch felt like the perfect project. I chose a larger size because I thought it would be more practical, and it absolutely was. I love the final size of my clutch. It fits a lot of things inside and it's become my main project bag whenever I feel like taking my knitting with me somewhere. I don't usually carry projects around on a daily basis, but somehow that's been happening more and more lately, and this clutch is always the one I reach for. But it's definitely too big for an easy throw my project inside my backpack and let's go kind of thing, so I do have to set aside some space for it in my backpack. But when it comes to the yarn, I wanted the least risk of regret in case I didn't like knitting with boucle, so I picked some from Drops. I expected to hold it single-stranded, but then I realized the pattern called for holding it double. Thankfully, I had enough yarn because plain yarn chicken is basically the worst thing that can happen to my control-obsessed knitting brain. And I liked the yarn and the fabric. It was really difficult to see my stitches sometimes, but I guess this is the nature of knitting with boucle. I definitely had to let go of perfection every now and then and just trust that I was putting my needle roughly in the right place. But no holes have appeared so far, so I would call this a success. The texture is really nice. It looks cozy and cute, and it works perfectly for this kind of project. But I don't know how I'd feel about wearing something like this. I feel like I would see a giant teddy bear in the mirror and probably pick on this sweater and never wear it. So I'm not really sure if I want to knit a garment with boucle yarn. I also bought the lining and frame from PetiteKnit. If I knew how to sew and owned a sewing machine, I would have 100% made my own lining with a fun fabric, but that's still for future Lou. Past Lou at the time just bought the frame and lining from PetiteKnit, and attaching both went seamlessly, no issues at all. I just chose a matching thread and went to town, and the booklet texture hid everything. And would I make this again? Yes, if I lost mine or as a gift knit. As for owning a second teddy clutch, I don't think I need one. This one suits me just fine. And do I recommend it? Sure. It is a nice, easy and quick project that leaves you with a practical and very usable accessory in the end. This is an easy 5 out of 5 stars project. I'm glad I made it. I still like it very much, and it serves its intended purpose perfectly as a project bag. And my next project, I'm just going to throw it over there. My next project was the Clematis Sweater. This was one of my favorites of 2025, and I'm still very much in love with it. The way my knitting usually works is I want to cast on a certain pattern and then go and find yarn for it. But this project happened completely backwards. I came across the yarn first and then spent over 6 months, not kidding, 6 months, trying to find what felt like the perfect project for it. This pattern is written for DK weight yarn, but the yarn in question was Malabrigo sock in the colorway 343 Legend, which is a light fingering weight yarn. I didn't want to hold another yarn with it because it would hide some of the beauty of this yarn, and I didn't want to hold it double because it was my first time knitting with hand-dyed yarn, and I didn't want to spend almost 200 euros on an experiment. So I regraded the entire pattern to a fingering weight gauge, and I couldn't be happier with past me. Because of this lighter fabric, this piece ended up filling a gap in my hand knit wardrobe that I didn't even know I had, which was long-sleeved tees that are not sweater warm. I alternated skeins throughout this project, and although I didn't really love the process, it paid off because I can't see any pulling at all, not on the body and not on the sleeves. I probably did something wrong around the collar when regrading the pattern because mine has this kind of oval shape to it, but I actually like it. I think it suits this whole long-sleeved tee that isn't a sweater vibe. And I live in this thing during spring and autumn when it's still cold for a tee, but definitely sweaty territory for a hand knit sweater. The fabric is incredibly soft and it's one of my softest knits I have in my wardrobe. And it's been holding up really well. I've never depeeled it or done any kind of aftercare and it still looks brand new. So I think it's pretty obvious, but this is a 5 out of 5 stars project for me. It would be a 6 if they were possible, and I love my Clematis sweater. After that, I worked on some hand knit decor for my craft room. I wanted to add a touch of handmade decor around here because, believe it or not, I don't really have any besides those mandalas that I made a long time ago that are right here. So I wanted to hang cute handmade things on the walls. but I can never commit to an idea, so my walls are kind of bare at the moment. And since my plan was to hang something, I decided to work on the December bow and I modified the original pattern to simplify it as much as possible and make my life easier and this project quicker. So I skipped the I-cord edging and the double knit tie used to assemble the bow and just knit a tiny strip of stockinette fabric instead. Honestly, I don't think you can even tell. I used some cotton leftovers from my stash and I made 3 of these, adding stripes so that I had enough yarn for all 3. And they came out pretty cute, I would say. It was a quick and very easy knit. Since they just stay over there in a corner of the room, I think skipping a few of the finishing touches was completely fine. But if they were more of a focal piece of decor, like a Christmas tree ornament or something like that, I would have gone all out with the finishing. Would I make this again? Yes, why not? I think I would. Maybe not as decor like this, but I have this distant idea of one day decorating a Christmas tree entirely with December balls in different shades of red. That will probably never happen, but it would sure look gorgeous. So my rating for this project would be possibly a 4 out of 5 stars, I guess. They're nice and cute and there's nothing wrong with them, but I just don't get the same excitement from them that I get from knitting a sweater or any garment for that matter. So it feels wrong to rate them 5 stars. But that's just me making my life difficult for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So next I wanted to work on a sweater. Sweaters are definitely where I get the most excitement from knitting, so of course I had to cast another one on next. And this time I chose the Pierre Sweater. It was my first time knitting a pattern from this designer, and I don't know if it was this specific pattern or if it's the designer's writing style, but it took me a minute for things to click in my brain and start making sense. Eventually they did, and it was a smooth process overall, but not right off the bat like it usually is. And this is an all-over lace sweater with my beloved twisted rib details. The yarn came from my mom's stash, so I used Host Yarn Super Soft in the colorway Sage Blue, which is not a color I would have gravitated towards on my own, but I actually love the final color of this sweater. I paired it with one strand of Knitting for Olive mohair in Dusty Sea Green to get the required yarn weight, and I'm glad I did. It was my first time knitting with both yarns, and I'm just going to say it, I don't get why this yarn is called Super Soft. It feels kind of dry and rough on my hands when I'm knitting. It definitely softens up with a good soak, but not to the point that I would call this super soft. The mohair helped a lot with making it feel nicer next to skin. I wear the sweater on a regular basis when the weather allows, usually with a lightweight black tank top underneath because of the sheer nature of lace fabric. And I don't remember making any modifications initially, but a while after finishing it, I realized I enjoy a longer than usual sleeve length for my hand knits, and this one was hitting me at bracelet length whenever I bent my arm, and that was driving me up the wall to the point that I wasn't wearing this sweater. So about 6 months or so after finishing it, I went back and added one entire pattern repeat to each sleeve, and now it's perfect. I think this is the only hand knit piece I've ever made that someone complimented me on, so I call this a huge success. And I think this earns this sweater a 5 out of 5 stars rating. If not because of that, then because of the labor of love this project was. And would I make it again? Honestly, I don't think I need a second Pierre sweater in my wardrobe. If I wanted another all-over lace sweater, I would probably choose another pattern just for some variety. But if I lost mine, I would need another one. Yes, I think I would. And I also remember feeling pretty ready for this project to be over by the time I got to the second sleeve. Lace requires me to pay attention to my knitting, so after a while I start getting a little tired of it. And would I change something? No, other than keeping the extra long length sleeves. I am really happy with the fit and I wear it regularly and it's comfy, so I guess I wouldn't change anything. But would I recommend the pattern? I guess if you're confident in your knitting and it's not your first drop shoulder sweater, I don't think the Pierre Sweater would be a huge challenge. But I do think having a little bit of experience under your belt really helps here. My issue is that if the instructions had been worded just a smidge differently, or if the pattern had literally added a couple of sentences here and there, the whole knitting experience would have been so much more relaxing. And at times that really frustrated me. But that's it about my Pierre sweater, and now let's talk about another tee. And if there's something I'm really good at, is underestimating how long a project is going to take me. So after my Skyline Tee fiasco, I needed a win on a tea project, so I cast on the Lyra Tee by Irene Lin. It looked so fancy and elevated with the twisted rib and cable details that choosing this project was a no-brainer. For the yarn, I went with Sunless Garn Thin Line, which is a cotton, linen and viscose blend, fingering weight, and it was my first time trying this yarn and I really enjoyed it. The stocknet fabric looks really neat for this fiber blend, and this burgundy color is gorgeous. I wear it a lot during the warmer months. I've noticed a little bit of peeling under the arms here, but not enough to pull out my deep peeler or anything like that, not even close to that actually. I just pinch it right off and that's that. Now, one thing that I've noticed though is that this yarn, or at least this colorway, catches quite a bit of lint, especially around the collar. It's not enough to stop me from wearing this tee, but it's enough that I give it a quick dust off before putting it on. And modification wise, I made so many changes that I had to go back to my notes from last year. I was completely off gauge, so I started with a size 8, then I finished the yoke, the fit was terrible, I ripped back a good chunk of the raglan shaping, switched to a size 7, shortened the yoke by 18 rounds, took a bunch of stitches off the sleeves and somehow made it work. So I guess that's why this project felt endless at one point. But it was definitely worth it because the fit is perfect now. In fact, I even use this tee as a guide when I'm working on new summer tees. And would I make this again? 1000%, without a doubt. Though I don't know if I would be capable of recreating all the modifications I made here, so let's just hope I never lose this tee. And as for rating, this is a confident 5 out of 5 stars. Bonus star if possible. I wouldn't change a single stitch. And would I recommend the pattern? Absolutely. All the modifications I made were purely to make the tee fit me the way I wanted. They had nothing to do with issues in the pattern itself. It is well written, easy to understand, and I had a really good time knitting this one. Now it was time to give sock knitting another go, so I cast on the Cuff Club Sock Volume 1. This is a really cool pattern that gives you a new colorwork cuff chart every month for 1 year that you can mix and match with the base sock pattern. But because I bought the pattern after the first year was over, I received everything at once. And I'm not much of a sock knitter. or at all, I guess. When I started knitting back in 2020, I knit one pair, but they didn't fit me right. They were kind of ugly and they basically put me off sock knitting entirely. So last summer I tried to change that by knitting the January chart with this simple but really cute wave-like motif. Moral of the story, I still don't get the hype of sock knitting. But if you're a sock knitter, please don't come after me. I liked the process. I just don't get the same excitement from it that I get from knitting garments or even accessories. The only time I feel excited to cast on socks is when I come across a gorgeous sock yarn and immediately picture socks in it because somehow a sweater just wouldn't work. Does that make any sense? I hope it does. The yarn I used was Lana Grossa vintage socks in a pink and orange, and I paired them with Filcolana Arveta in this stunning lime green colorway called Sprout. You can barely see it, but it is there. This colorway was so out of my comfort zone that I surprised myself. In fact, I loved it so much that I knit an entire sweater in this colorway a couple of months ago. So that says a lot. And yarn-wise, I really like my choices. They are pretty and seem to be holding up well, but I don't wear my hand-knit socks very often and never with shoes, only with slippers during winter, so I don't think I can fairly assess their durability. With this pair, I tried knitting a heel flap and gusset for the first time, and don't get mad, but I hated it. It was so fiddly and tedious that I regretted it before I was even done with the first heel. This is not for me at all. And my biggest issue with sock knitting though is that I find it really difficult to get a good fit. And I know we would probably get better the more socks I knit, but socks just aren't exciting enough to make me want to put in that work. But as for the pattern itself, I would absolutely recommend it. There is nothing wrong with it. I love the aesthetics of it. Summer Lee's photos are always so pretty and cozy that they make me want to knit socks for a couple of minutes. And after everything I just said, I'd call that a huge success for the pattern. But for the rating, I guess I'm going with 3 out of 5 stars. It sounds kind of harsh, but I only reach for these socks a few times over the winter, and coupled with the fit being a bit off, that's where the rating lands for me. If I were judging them purely by cuteness, I would probably give them a 4.5 stars maybe. And I loved my PetiteKnit so much that I wanted another one, so I cast on the Honey Clutch this time. It was my first time knitting honeycomb brioche stitch, and although I liked the process, I think I only liked it because it was a small project. By the time I felt like I had enough of the stitch pattern, I was basically at the finish line. I don't see myself knitting a garment in this stitch pattern or even a shawl, but in a clutch like this it looks beautiful. The entire top is worked in double knitting, so the clutch holds its shape pretty well. It doesn't collapse, which is nice. I can't really show you that because it is empty, or I guess I can. It doesn't collapse, and that is really good for a clutch. And the hardest part was sewing the zipper. The actual sewing part was fine, but getting it to stay exactly where I wanted it was really tricky. I ended up redoing it 5 times because things kept shifting around on me, but eventually I got it right. The yarn I used was a combination of BC Yarn, BioShetland, and Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair to get the right yarn weight. And the final color is so perfect, I couldn't be happier. I reach for this as often as I reach for my PetiteKnit, just depending on how much space I need for the project I'm bringing with me. And the only thing I have to keep an eye on is making sure the zipper teeth here don't get caught on whatever project I have inside, because that could go bad really quick. And my rating for this project is, I think, 5 out of 5 stars. I was worried the mohair fuzz might get caught in the zipper, but it actually never happened, not a single time. So yes, I think 5 stars feels right. And now the next project I worked on, it was my third and final tee of the summer, and I wanted to cast on the Lusk Tee. This is one of those mega patterns Rebecca Clow has that offers you lots of different versions of the same design, different gauges, long and short sleeves, and things like that. I knit mine as the short-sleeved version out of Knitting for Olive pure silk. I wanted to try this yarn, and this felt like a good pattern for that. And can you tell by now that last summer's theme was let's try out new yarns? Because I had a lot of fun with that. I added a little bit of texture to my tee, just playing with knits and pearls, nothing fancy, and I really like the final look. But now that I'm looking back at it, I don't think I made the best choice when it comes to the color. I think this shade washes me out a little bit. I still wear it often though, so it's not enough to stop me from reaching for it. I just wish past me had gone a smidge darker. Knitting with this yarn was nice. Nothing out of this world, but not unpleasant either. The fabric is airy and comfy, which is perfect for summer. And my 1x1 ribbing looks neat. And that's usually tricky for me depending on the yarn, so that is a bonus here. Would I make this again? Sure. I wear it often and it's really comfy, but maybe I'd do a stockinette version in a variegated yarn or play around with the texture so that the tees don't look too similar. The pattern was easy to follow and I didn't encounter any issues. So I guess this is a 4 out of 5 stars project for me, but only because of the color. Had I chosen something a little darker, I think it would suit me better. But I also think this is me being picky. So this is fine. And next I worked on a gift knit for my little niece. Every year since she was born, I knit her something for Christmas. She is a fierce lover of unicorns, so when I came across the Always Forever unicorn sweater, it wasn't even a question. She was getting a unicorn sweater. I used the recommended yarn, which was Drops Air, also my first time trying it, and I have mixed feelings about it. Overall, I liked it. It's soft and squishy, and she doesn't have any issues wearing it next to skin. My issue is how it's been holding up. But okay, a little kid wears this sweater and she doesn't really care about her clothes when she is playing and having fun, and she's not supposed to, that's perfectly fine. If she's happy and comfy, that's what matters. But this sweater feels a lot, and I do mean a lot. And it's not even in one spot, it's all over the sweater. Honestly, it looks like she's had it for longer than she's been alive. And for comparison, the vest I knit her the year before still looks pretty much exactly like it did when I bound it off. I also used 2 colorways, a gray and a white, and I don't know if I was imagining things, but the white yarn felt noticeably lighter on my needles. If you look closely at the sweater, the fabric on the unicorn is a tiny bit more open than the rest of the sweater, which was knit entirely in gray. The only modification I made was changing the unicorn's eye from a sleeping eye to a smiling eye. And would I knit this again? No doubt. Not a question. I'm basically just waiting for my knees to grow out of it so I can cast on another one. But I don't know if I would change the yarn because even with these issues, it's soft, she finds it comfortable and it's inexpensive. So is it worth choosing another yarn? Probably spending more money and risk her finding it itchy just for the sake of some peeling? I truly don't know. But for my rating, I give this project a 5 stars for cuteness and comfort, but 3 stars for the yarn. So let's compromise and give this unicorn sweater a 4 out of 5 stars project. And apparently, I still wasn't done knitting sweaters because somehow I squeezed one more in. And I'm so happy I did because this ended up being one of my favorite projects of the year. My stripe hype sweater was knit entirely from stash, and thank goodness for that because had I bought yarn specifically for this project, I most likely wouldn't have come up with this color combination, and it is perfection. I had a bunch of Hostgar Super Soft in my stash from the same time my mom bought her cone and sage blue. We wanted to try the yarn together and bought a few balls each. This yarn is so incredibly lightweight that it almost feels like lace weight, even though it's technically fingering. I didn't want to hold it double and get a heavier fabric, and I didn't want to add mohair again, so since I liked my long-sleeved Clematis Tee so much, I went ahead and made a fingering weight version of the stripe hype and regraded the whole thing. And I also changed the stripe placement because I only had 3 contrast colors instead of 5. And it looks so pretty, I love it so much. There's not a week that goes by that I don't wear this sweater. Well, excluding summer, obviously. I soaked it many times while making it to get the softest fabric possible. And although I still wouldn't call it soft exactly, it's soft enough to wear next to skin without any itch. The fit is perfect, the length, the colors, everything. I genuinely wouldn't change a single thing. It also works with almost every pair of trousers I own, so it really couldn't be any better. And would I make this again? I mean, come on, 100% yes. Although I think it would be difficult to come up with another color combination that I would love this much, so I'd be a little scared of disappointing myself. And does it work in real life? Absolutely. Much more than I anticipated, in fact. 100% recommend this pattern. It's straightforward, easy and relaxing knit, good for beginners, good for advanced knitters. It just suits everyone out there. And at this point, it's not even a question that this is a 5 out of 5 stars project. Actually, 6 stars. Because the rules are mine and we're having fun. And that's it for my summer 2025 knits. Looking back at all 11 projects, I have no idea how I managed to fit all of this into one season. There were definitely a couple of misses and a few things that I would do differently now, but overall I'm really happy with this collection of projects. Apparently I love regrading patterns to fingering weight, I still don't understand the hype of sock knitting, and I really enjoy knitting sweaters. But now I want to hear from you. Have your opinions on old projects ever changed over time? Because mine, yeah, they change on a regular basis. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And if you enjoyed this video and feel like sticking around, I would love to have you here. You can subscribe if you'd like and maybe give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I hope you're having a lovely morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!